Over the weekend, the following headline ran in the UK Daily Mail Online. Quote, "This is a call for it," end of quote. Riley Gaines would love to debate Megan Rapino on transgendered athletes after calling the ex-USWNT star a, quote, faux feminist for objecting to a trans ban in women's sports. In simpler language, Riley Gaines, famous swimmer from University of Kentucky, wants to debate soccer star Megan Rapino on the question of transgendered men in women's sports. Now, you read that headline, you're watching this video, obviously you're asking the question, Front Porch, if someone gave you a ticket to this debate, would you go? What do you mean, give me a ticket? I'd pay for the ticket. I'd pay big money for this ticket. Are you kidding me? Forget about Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. This might wind up being the greatest show on earth. I would not only go to this thing, I'd be on the front row. I'd be promoting it anywhere I could. I'd be standing outside giving away tickets after I bought them myself. I'd do anything I could to possibly promote this. And there's one big reason above all else, and it doesn't have to do with Riley Gaines. It has to do with Megan Rapino. Hang on, I'll explain all of this in just a second. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. Now, I want to go back and give a little background on what's going on or what is leading us to this headline that's being reported in the UK Daily Mail. For those of you who may not have heard of this young lady, Riley Gaines is a former swimmer from the University of Kentucky who in 2022 competed in the NCAA championships in the 500-meter freestyle against a transgendered Leah Thomas, born a biological male, now identifying as a transgender female. Now, Riley has gone on to some notoriety in that she is on one side of the debate about transgendered athletes competing in female sports. Riley is of the opinion, no, this should not be happening. And she's gone around the country speaking. Now, if the name does ring a more familiar bell more recently, she's the young lady who has basically had to barricade herself in a bathroom out in San Francisco State University because transgendered activists basically held her hostage and tried to ransom her for money. Now, that sets up the background. Let's get into this article from the UK Daily Mail Online. And we read on the front page thereof, Riley Gaines has welcomed a debate with trans activist Megan Rapino in a bid to have, quote, open dialogue between two of the most high-profile figures on opposite sides of the trans in sports debate. Gaines was attacked by radical trans activists while speaking at San Francisco State University last week and continued to speak out against trans women, otherwise known as biological men. Why we're making that distinction, I'm not quite sure. Yes, they are biological men. Competing in women's sports. Oh, I'm sorry, part of that was in the article. Never mind, I'm editorializing. The former University of Kentucky swimmer who competed with transgender woman, formerly the University of Pennsylvania men's swimmer William Thomas, now known as Leah Thomas, has repeatedly criticized former USWNT star Rapino in recent days. Now Gaines has agreed to the idea of direct discourse with her following a proposal from Republican 2024 presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Quote, absolutely, this is a call for it, Gaines told Ramaswamy on the Vivek show. I would love to. I'm in. In my experience in San Francisco in the past week, in trying to have an open dialogue, I was met with ambush, I mean violence. I was barricaded in a room for 3 hours. They were trying to negotiate a ransom deal. If I wanted to make it home safely, I had to pay them. That's what I'm being met with. So it's hard to get in front of people you disagree with if they're not willing to listen. A little further into the article. We need more civil, respectful ways to have dialogue. I think it's so important. On Wednesday, Gaines condemned Rapino for the second day running, while also highlighting the hypocrisy of tennis great Billie Jean King for her support of trans participation in sports despite her historical fight for women in sports. While speaking with Ramaswamy, Gaines explained her theory as to why there has been an increase in both transgender people and their participation in sports in recent years. Quote, "I've done a lot of thinking about what the ulterior motive is," she said. Why is this happening at such an alarming, rampant rate? My first observation is it seems as if everyone wants to be a victim, which is a very weird approach to have. Everyone wants to in some way becomes a marginalized group. Everyone wants to be oppressed. They want to be victims. At first it struck me, why? Why would someone want to view themselves as marginalized? While expressing those suffering from gender dysphoria should be treated with empathy, Gaines highlighted an inarguable difference between the likes of Dylan Mulvaney and those who are biological women. We are more than just hair, the makeup, and a testosterone level. Women are more than just a testosterone level. There's so much more that goes into being a woman. Yeah, I've got a whole lot of thoughts about this. Bunch of them. And it's this. Absolutely. I want to see this debate happen. And I want to see this debate happen for a lot of different reasons. Number one, I come out of a tradition that there was a time when, even though you had two sides that were in diametric opposition to each other, they could at least meet somewhere. The town square, on a stage in a university, somewhere, and they could debate their difference. Even though these times are very hyperbolic, even though these times are very partisan, if I may use that word for this context, even though these times are full of vitriol, I think that kind of open dialogue not only can still happen, it needs to happen. If we are going to have any kind of hope of saving a distinctly and unique American culture, debates like the one that Riley Gaines is proposing needs to happen. Now, this next part is directed to Megan Rapinoe, and I doubt very seriously that she will ever see the contents of this video, but on the off chance that Megan Rapinoe were to ever watch this, here's my message. Megan, I am begging you. I am pleading with you. Take this young lady up on her invitation for debate. And I'm not asking you to do it out of maliciousness, and I'm not asking you to do it out of trying to stir the stink. I'm really not. But there is one very important reason why I want to see you take this debate. I want to see you explain and justify why you feel that transgendered athletes should be able to take the position that women would otherwise have on a sports team. Or, let's get this a little closer to home, shall we? I want to see you explain and justify why a transgendered male should be allowed to take the position of a biological female on a soccer team. Oh, that's close to home. Yeah, it probably is. But I've got a funny feeling. And again, Megan, this is not personal, but I got a funny feeling you're all for supporting the idea of transgendered athletes in sports, just as long as it's not a transgendered athlete who might take a spot in a sport you're playing in, or the sport of another biological female in soccer. And see, that to me is the funny thing in all of this. And I don't quite understand, which is part of why I want to see this debate happen. I don't understand how people like Megan Rapinoe, and I will also use the name Billie Jean King, since she was referenced in this UK Daily Mail article, and Billie Jean King is legendary for being a supporter of women's rights and equality in sports for men and women. I don't see how the likes of Rapino, Billie Jean King, and others can somehow sign letters, send them off to Congress saying, you know, we stand in strong support of Title IX and other issues like it, but on the other hand, be in favor of a situation where a transgendered male could wind up knocking a female out of being on a sports team. That one's gonna, I mean, if you can logistically and linguistically do it, more power to you. And if that's the position you want to hold, okay, fine, it's still a free country. But that is going to be a real stretch, and that is part of why I want to see this debate. No, I don't want to see you get on stage and suffer. That's not my point. But I really want to hear the explanation for this. Can you, with a straight face, Megan Rapino, justify the idea that a transgendered male could knock a biological female out of being on a women's soccer team or the U.S. soccer team that would play for the World Cup? If it came down to two of your friends and a transgender male went and tried out for the U.S. women's soccer team and knocked off one of your friends, could you live with that? I wonder. Now, this debate's not going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, the things that have happened to Riley Gaines have brought attention to the issue. The issue is still out there. You have state legislatures that are pushing laws right now that are banning transgendered males from competing in women's sports. This is not going away anytime soon. And another thing that I find to be very, very interesting, this idea of, prominent female figures in sports, it seems that there's a certain amount of division. Let me show you something real quick, because I found this to be really interesting. I had heard about this, but I want to go back and refresh my own memory on it. Remember that Riley Gaines is dealing mostly in the area of swimming. Well, let me show you something. This is from the UK Daily Mail from a few months ago. Quote, "Thank you for standing up." Oh, got to put that on the screen if I'm going to show it to you. "Thank you for standing up for female athletes. Ex-Olympic swimmer Sharon Davies praises World Athletics for voting to exclude transgender athletes from the women's category. Ex-swimmer Sharon Davies said the move shows women are worthy of fair sport." This, if you're not familiar with Sharon Davies, she's competed on behalf of Great Britain in the 70s, the 80s, and into the 90s, winning the silver at the 1980 Olympics. And she is more than in favor of the idea that only women should be competing against women in certain athletic sports. Let me show you another example. The legendary tennis star Martina Navratilova supports World Athletics' ban on transgender women in competition. This is from Canoe.com. I want to read a little bit of this because some of her comments are very interesting. The 9-time Wimbledon champion stated in an op-ed piece in Britain's The Times that the decision was, quote, "a step in the right direction." Navratilova urged for the creation of a separate category of competition for transgendered athletes. Quote, "In the wake of World Athletics' announcement, I think the best idea would be to have a, quote, biological female and biological girls categories and then have an open category," said Navratilova. "It would be a category for all comers, men who identify as men, women who identify as women, women who identify as men, men who identify as women, non-binary. It would be a catch-all. This is already being explored in athletics and swimming in Britain." Navratilova said biologically born females are likely to get their best and fair shot at winning when competing in the biologically female category. She said, quote, "An open category comes, there's no question marks, no provisos, no asterisk, no doubts," noting it's a simple solution. "Once somebody has gone through male puberty, there is no way to erase that physical advantage. You cannot simply turn back the clock, for instance, by trying to lower testosterone levels," she wrote. She hoped the World Athletics decision would lead other sports to follow suit. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is an absolutely fascinating debate for so many different reasons and on so many different levels. But for right now, I'll just say this. And I'll say it again. Megan, if you should ever happen to see this video, I am not asking you to do it out of maliciousness, and I'm not asking you to do it to stir the drink. But honestly, please take this young lady up on her offer. This is a debate that needs to happen. If you are prepared to defend transgendered athletes' right to participate in sports, particularly women's sports, then I think you should go on stage and explain that position. But I also think you better be ready to explain the contradiction. With all due respect, you've been out there for years pushing for equal pay for women in soccer, pushing for other issues, and that's fine. That's your right to do it. But I don't see how you can do that and then somehow justify the position that could wind up messing over women when it comes to opportunities to advance themselves in sports. It's just some food for thought. Anyway, as we start to wrap up this video, please do me some favors, as always. If you're not a subscriber to this channel, please do so. Number 2, if you have friends of yours that you think would enjoy this content, please spread the word around. I'll take all the help I can get. Number 3, hit the notification bell. I want to make sure you're always aware when new videos are coming out. And finally, give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your Front Porch Conservative, and I'll see you next time.